Welcome to Chaos, Courage and Coffee, the podcast for anyone who's felt like on the outside I'm holding it together, but inside I'm struggling.
And we do it with honesty, heart, and just enough coffee to get through the day.
Hello, Vanessa. How are you today?
Hi, Brett. Good, thank you. And you?
I'm well.
Great.
So I've been thinking, we've had several conversations, and a lot of our conversations have encouraged people to do something a little bit different, to think about themselves, their relationships, but basically what it all boils down to is change. But my question today, or what I'd like to talk about, is why is change so difficult? Why do we struggle so much to make changes, whether it's an internal, systems, processes change, a thinking change, or even a physical change in our environment or our habits? Why is change so hard?
It's interesting because I always say to people that essentially people don't like change. So when we have big changes in the world, I remember when people started, a couple of ones that stick out to me, when suddenly smoking in pubs wasn't acceptable. And I remember the first pub that said you can't smoke in it. And I was like, whoa, like what a big stance. And another one was when, again, going back a long time, about being vegetarian or vegan, and like some restaurants started offering that. These changes, like global changes, they do come in, but they take a long, long time. Now you go to a restaurant, totally acceptable to, it's always on the menu, whether it's gluten-free, whether it's vegetarian, whether it's vegan. Smoking, we have smoking areas now outside the pub. We don't smoke on airplanes. Do you remember when the people smoked at the back of I mean, it's just inconceivable now to think people were smoking on an aeroplane. And these changes came in, but they took time.
Mhm. Yeah, it does take time. But why is it so difficult personally? Well, because that's what we're talking about. And that's, part of what this podcast is about. It's about personal change. So why do we struggle so much with making those changes? And I think it's part of it. One of the reasons is, again, we don't like change. So part of making a change, a large part, I suppose, of making change is up here. And, it's in our heads. We've got to change the way we think. We sometimes need to change our behaviors and those sorts of things. Unfortunately, our brains are somewhat lazy. They're very energy intensive. They use a lot of energy to function. And we fall into a pattern. We develop habits, thinking habits, movement habits, lifestyle habits. And we live our lives a lot on, I suppose you could say, autopilot, because it's simple and it's easy and our brains don't have to think about it. But making change can be difficult because we're on habit, we're on autopilot, and so we don't think about it. So making change requires us to think constantly or more regularly. And so that's harder and it takes effort.
Yeah.
There's a starting point.
I think you've hit on the first. So two things I would flag out, and one of them is energy. Like, I don't see us as lazy. I see us as energy conserving. The reason we work on autopilot is because it saves energy. So first thing is, we just repeat the same things because it's energy conservation. The brain uses a lot of energy. So I exercise quite a lot, but if I didn't exercise, I would still need a lot of food for the energy of the day, even just sitting around, because my brain is using a lot of energy. Then when you add exercise, you need extra because you've got that extra energy being used up. So that would be my first point to explore, is about energy. The second thing I would look at is comfort levels. We always revert to what's comfortable, even if we don't like it and it's not good. Comfortable is good for us. We like comfort because it's predictable. We know what's happening. Now you say change, and it's suddenly like, whoa, change. Suddenly, it's not going to be the same old predictable pattern. Something's going to change, and then suddenly inside us, it's like, I don't know now what's going to happen. We've got that uncertainty. So those are the first two I would pick on, is energy and comfort level.
I think so. Energy is good. Comfort level, I absolutely agree with, and I'd like to delve into that one a little bit more, because I think you're right. We don't like change. Some people very obviously don't like change. They don't like change in the workplace. They don't like change at home. They have to have their routines and their patterns, and that's fine. But there's an expression: if we are not green and growing, changing, evolving, then we are ripe and rotting. And I don't know if you've heard this one before, but if we're not making change, and look, we've got to face it, the world around us is constantly changing. We can't just stay in the same thing. Our cars change, smoking rules, you used before. There is constant change in our workplaces. Now, we can't just bury our head in the sand and say, it's not going to happen and I'm not going to do it, because we'll just get left behind, and we'll be even more unhappy perhaps than we currently are. So it is important that we change. We need to be green and growing, and change is part of that. And our comfort, we need to push outside the comfort zone. Doesn't have to be much. We don't have to jump full body out of it, but we can put a little toe out here and there and get used to that tiny little bit of discomfort or slight uncomfortableness. And it's just that little bit at a time can change over a long time. And so I like that one. That's good.
So there's people, because everyone's a little bit different, people accept different, they have different tolerances for change. So some people definitely need, and it's about feeling safe. So some people need a lot of routine. I actually like change. You still have a framework of routine underneath it because that gives you your security. And that's the bit that changes depending on who you are, like how much has to stay the same. So yeah, we do need to be changing, but it's about what is changing. So if what we talk about here is about like core changes, that's really hard for us because we have our values and we have our systems and we have our patterns. And when we want to change something because something's not working for us in life, it quite often goes quite deep into one of our core kind of programs. So imagine you've got about, I don't know, let's just say 20 core programs. And one of the things that's happening in your life means you've got to change one of those core programs. That's quite unsettling because we feel safe with these core programs. Even if one's not working for us, we just feel safe. So if you have a chair and you start taking away the legs, the chair's only got 4 legs. You take away one, it's 3. Okay, it might be all right, a bit wobbly. You can't take another one away. So we're going to be really, really careful about what we're changing because it makes us wobbly. And immediately that we're wobbly, we start feeling scared. We're like, no, put that leg back on the chair because I need to feel safe. So it is very, very hard. And it does come down to feeling safe because everything comes from safety. We need to feel safe in life. And we don't like being wobbly. And we have a tolerance for how wobbly we're going to allow. And we're going to revert back to our safety.
And everybody's tolerance is different. And that's okay. No, we're not all the same. It's okay to be different. And it's the differences in life. If everybody was the same, it'd be a really boring world because we'd all be looking at ourselves every day. So the differences in us are what make us human. And it's what makes, from my perspective anyway, my personal opinion, the differences we experience in life and between different peoples is what makes life so interesting. And it's what makes people interesting. But I think your analogy of the programs is really good. And because if we identify that a program is not working, then we need to maybe not. And if I tie this back to the chair, not just take out the legs, but replace the leg with a different one. It might be a different color, different shape, different style, whatever. And it's a process over time, not instantly. It's a process over time. Because if we can change the chair one piece at a time or change the program little bit by little bit, then our security, our safety is still there. We are updating it. It doesn't have to be massive amounts of change, as I said before, one little piece at a time, one leg at a time, and change it with something new. But it is really important to understand that we can't just change the whole thing. It's a process over time, one leg at a time. And once we're settled down, then we can do the next step. But I think part of that is identifying where the problem is probably, if we start looking at steps, number one. If we're going to make a change, what is the change that needs to happen? Number two is, how do we make the change? And I suppose breaking that down into small pieces, one leg, maybe the back of the chair, those sorts of things, one step at a time, so that we've still got that security, so it's not such a big change. But part of the change is about awareness and of what needs to change. And if we're not looking at it, and sometimes, as we've already said, we're on autopilot. We do these things out of habit because it's routine and those sorts of things. So yes, when we try to make change, we're going to slip back because that's our habit, and that's okay. It's about being aware that this has happened, that we have reverted, or this is the thing I want to change. And it takes a little bit more mental energy to pick up those habits and be conscious of, okay, I did that yesterday. I'm going to make this change again today.
Yeah, you've just brought back in the mental energy because, it does take a lot of effort. I was listening to you referring to the chair analogy, and I wanted to add in, if we're changing one leg at a time, it's about feeling supported, and not falling over. And that's why like friends and life coaching really helps, because it will support you as you go through the wobble, because it will be a wobble because you're not familiar with it and it's uncomfortable. The chair analogy, also changing one leg at a time, works really well for habits. When we want to change a habit, quite often people want to remove a habit. It's much better to swap it out for something better. So the analogy of change the leg for something different, it's so much easier. Or the other thing we do with habits is we add something onto it that we want to say. I don't know, a good one for me is like trying to remember to take, say, some vitamin tablets. And it's like, I just don't remember. I can do it for a week and then I forget. But if I tag it onto another habit that I already do, like cleaning your teeth, having your coffee, it's so much less energy. So back to the energy. I don't have to think about it. You talk about autopilot. We like things to be on autopilot to save energy so we don't have to think about it. So when you're thinking about change, you want to make it easy for yourself and not too much effort, because that's when we're just like, especially on a bad day. It's like you don't have the energy. It's like, I'm not going to exercise today because I'm just too exhausted. So you're saving your energy. Everything is about saving your energy.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, I had a little funny moment when you were talking about change. So replace it with something new. Uh, it, I don't know why this came up for me, but I was thinking about Lethal Weapon, one of the Lethal Weapon movies, when Riggs, Mel Gibson's character, was trying to stop smoking and he started eating dog biscuits instead. I don't know why, but it's an important point that you bring up. You can't just decide, I'm not going to do this anymore, because that would be like taking the chair out completely. And that's not going to work. Talk about unstable, we're going to be completely lost. So we do need to find something to replace it with. And I 100% agree with you that if we're going to introduce something, a new habit, or try to create a new habit, not replace one, but do something new, attach it to something that we're already doing, like, um, I don't know, or like you're taking your vitamin tablets. All right. When you get up in the morning and you have breakfast or have a cup of tea or coffee in the morning, then that's you attach it to that time, and that will keep it consistent because you're attaching it to something that you're already doing. And it's one of those things that there are different strategies depending on the desired outcome. What you want to achieve can not necessarily the end goal, what does that look like, but whether you are replacing or creating a new habit. So
I like that you've brought in what we want to achieve. Because I was thinking when you were sharing about the dog biscuits, I I was trying to stop myself having a coffee in the morning. And knowing what I know, because it's a habit and I'm completely lost if I don't get up and make my coffee. So I've changed it. I've done all the healthy things. You drink lemon water, I drink tea. The thing is, it still hasn't worked. And that was just going through my mind as you were talking. And of course, the reason it hasn't worked is because I didn't think about what I actually wanted. Like, what was the desired outcome? What was behind it? Why did I want to stop drinking coffee? And it wasn't a strong enough reason. Like after all these years, I've just thought, you know what? I like my coffee. I'm just going to drink it. It's not that bad. It, and that was the thing. It was like, oh, coffee's bad for you, but it's not bad enough. So my desired outcome, it's not important enough. I prefer my ritual of getting up and having a coffee to the outcome. And that's why it fell apart. So if you really want the change to stick, you have got to think about so I'm just repeating what Brett said just to highlight it, but what is your desired outcome? What is it you want? Because if you don't really want it enough, okay, like stopping smoking, if you don't want it enough, it's not going to happen. Whether you eat dog biscuits or not, it is such an interesting one. Yeah.
like I said, I don't know why that came up. It just did.
Yeah, not a tactic that's commonly used, but okay, if anyone tries that, let me know. I don't think that's really good for you. And you might get addicted to dog biscuits. I don't know.
But I think it's about identifying what the triggers are for that particular habit as well.
Yep.
When, why, how, those sorts of things, timing maybe. There are all sorts of reasons why we have bad habits. Some of them aren't that bad. As you say, the wanting to not have the coffee first thing in the morning, the habit, the ritual, as you called it, I think is sometimes just as important. The comfort that we get from that is of more value to us personally than the desired change. As you say, what do we want to get out of it? Is it important enough? Why do we want it? And we can go down those paths. Why, what, all those sorts of things, building that desire. But at the end of the day, is it really necessary? How much benefit is it going to give you? Well, probably not enough in those circumstances. And look, I'm not a coffee drinker, but coffee isn't completely bad. By the first one, I was listening to a podcast yesterday. They were saying that 2 to 5 cups of coffee a day can reduce your risk of heart disease by, I don't know, I'm going to make it up and say 20%. If anybody knows the exact number, by all means, let us know. But it has some health benefits having those coffees. Timing might be important. Don't have caffeine after 12 p.m. because it can affect your sleep, for example. But it's important to understand what we want and why do we want it. And the real connection with the why, and is this important enough to go through the pain? And let's face it, there can be pain, whether it's emotional, psychological pain or physical pain with making change. And if for those people that haven't exercised for a while, or those people that didn't and have started, you'll certainly know the physical pain when you get out, and whether it's pumping weights in the gym or going for a run or a walk or whatever, you will certainly experience the physical pain. Is this pain worth the price is the pain worth the product, I suppose. Is it
I
worth
think
the
that
outcome?
it comes back to everything. It's if we start with knowing, like, really, what's the change that we're wanting all about? Where's it coming from, and what's it going to get us? And that becomes a really good driver, a really good incentive. And without that incentive, it's quite hard to stick to it. I think that's why when people have an exercise regime, you don't necessarily see the results for quite a while. So it's hard to stay motivated to do it. You know the health benefits in your head. You know exercise is good, but you don't see it. I mean, I exercise, but I don't see the results. I just have to know that. It makes it harder to be motivated. So get really, really clear on why you want the change, what it's all about, what it's going to do for you. Like all of those questions, really explore it before you dig into it. Was it like my coffee one? I mean, I did give up coffee for a while. I didn't see any change except that I didn't have my coffee, you know? So I had to start drinking coffee again because I liked that more than what I could see the benefit of not having the coffee. So get really, really clear on what the change is all about. Otherwise, you're really making it harder for yourself because there's just no incentive and it's going to make it harder to keep it going. And the only other way to keep it going is make it a habit. And when it's a habit and it's automated, then you haven't got that energy that's being used up. It's just a happening thing.
Yeah, and I think that's important. If we're doing things for the wrong reasons, it's so much harder when we're invested in it. So, understanding the why, the motivation, having real motivation. For some people, weight loss, and going back to that one because it's a relatively simple one. For some people, weight loss is about the children, the health benefits long term, because the doctors told them if you don't, you might have a heart attack or whatever the case may be. But for some people, that's not enough of a reason. They still eat the bad foods and they don't exercise and do those necessary things because that is not enough of a motivator for them. And that's not a criticism of anybody. Please don't get me wrong on this. Everybody's got their own life journey, and wherever you're at, um, you know, as long as you're happy, then that's okay. And nobody has the right to judge you as long as you're happy. If you're unhappy, then, people like Vanessa or myself, life coaches, other people can help provide the motivation and the resources, maybe not the physical resources, access to the gym, but we can provide the motivation and the mental internal resources to help get you through those stages and provide those levels of support, because that's what we do. So whether it's help with, better behaved children or veterans working through transition or losing weight, whatever the case may be. There's a plug for us, Vanessa.
Yeah, well, I've got another one because one thing that I notice when people come to us is it's got to be your one. A lot of the times, and this is again back in the exploration of it, is it something you want or is it something that someone else has put upon you? Excuse me. And quite often people come with a, oh, I should lose weight. Now, it's not going to happen unless you really believe it and want it. So, one of the things we do before we, in the early process of the coaching is check that you actually want it. Because if you don't, it's not really going to happen because you're fighting against yourself. So you need to really want it first. And that's okay. We'll help you with that bit to check it's something you really want. And when you have identified that it is and you're clear on it, that really helps your motivation. Just because someone else has said you should doesn't mean that you shouldn't, but we need you to want it for yourself as well.
It comes back to the why. Why am I doing this? What's my motivation? And when you've got the right motivation and you've got the right supports around you, these things start to become easier. It's no good trying to lose weight saying I've got to eat healthy if your cupboard is full of junk food, as an example. So, I've seen some of those diet health shows where they get the experts, the nutritionists, to come in and they take all of that food out of the cupboard, they put it in the bin, and so it's just not there. And if it's not there, you can't eat it. So
It's about making it easier for yourself and setting yourself up so that it's a smooth path to change, because every little resistance or everything that was working against you makes it harder and harder. So we want everything set up so that it's got its best chance of working.
yeah, we need the right structures. We need the right people around us. We need the right um, environment, the right supports. Change is hard because we like to be comfortable, which we discussed earlier. Change is hard because we don't necessarily approach it with the right strategy. We don't have the right structure. We don't have the right, I'm going to use the word stimulation, which is our motivation, I guess. So we need to pull all of these things together for real change. We need to have the right path. I mean, it's easy to say, and this is where I think some people get it wrong. It's easy to say, if we want to lose weight, we need to go to the gym and eat better. That's fine. That's the end bit. We all know where the gym is. We all know where the health food is in the supermarket, and we know we shouldn't have that stuff in our cupboards, but we've got in the pantry, but we've got them there anyway. And we don't go to the gym, and we don't go down the health food aisle. We, stick to the habits that we've already got, and this is where the support can really come in helpful. And again, the motivation.
Yeah, I think that was a really good summary. It's about the energy and it's about the right reasons and the motivation to smooth your path for change, because change isn't easy. It takes effort, it takes energy, it takes some planning and thinking and clarity about what you are wanting. Where do you want to end up?
Yep, absolutely.
Good topic. Thank you, Brett.
Thank you, Vanessa.
Thanks for being with us today on Chaos, Courage and Coffee. Remember, you're not alone and you don't have to figure it all out at once. What part of today's conversation stood out for you?
This podcast is about showing up in the mess, not waiting until it's all sorted out. If today helped, share it with someone else who might need it too.
And if you're navigating your own version of chaos, we'd love to hear about it. Leave a comment, message us, or join the conversation.
We'll be back soon with more honest talk, less pressure, and just enough courage to get through whatever's next.
See you next time on Chaos, Courage and Coffee.